And welcome back to our second episode of the NDPA Water Safety Podcast. I'm Adam Katchmarchi, the Executive Director of NDPA. So happy and excited today to be joined by my podcast and virtual conference and everything NDPA co-host, Laura Metro, our
Yes.
Marketing and Communications Director. Hi, Laura.
Hi there, Adam. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's so good to have you back
Good.
today. And today we have a guest joining us, our first guest on our podcast. So super excited about that.
Absolutely. This is
And
always an exciting time when this comes up.
it is, and our first guest today, I'm super excited. It's Beth Root from World's Largest Swim Lesson. Um, you and I have both participated in World's Largest Swimming Lesson over the years, and it's an event I look forward to every year, and I'm really, really excited as we're hopefully coming up on our post-COVID summer and seeing kids back in the pool. Laura, I know you've participated in World's Largest Swimming Lesson. I said it's something I look forward to every single year.
Yeah, it was actually the first event I ever hosted when I first got involved in water safety after Clay's drowning. For those who are listening or watching, my son Clay almost died by drowning when he was 3 years old. He's now 13. He was in a coma for 2 days, and he made a miraculous recovery. That was sort of my entree into water safety and CPR awareness and getting involved. And so when I first got involved, I was really, I know this now since I've been involved for so long, that a lot of people feel when they have, whether it's a non-fatal or fatal incident in their family or with friends and family, it immediately wakes people up and sparks an immediate interest and in some cases a desire or a drive to really spread this awareness. And so having something like the world's largest swimming lesson, that's sort of it's this turnkey event that you can just jump into, and the whole point of it is to involve as many people, places, and groups as possible. So it's made so easy to just get involved that, I mean, since the day that I participated, I went a route of creating my foundation and doing different things. But it is one of the first places that I send people to that want to get involved immediately is to this event, because
Yeah.
they can just get to work on it immediately. They have the support they need. There's the materials there. It's established. It's gone on for years now. So it is really exciting on multiple levels for people, both personally, professionally, and to help move the needle forward in drowning prevention and the impact that certain events and places and things can make.
Well, learning to swim is one of the most critical layers of protection to prevent drowning. And this event
Yep,
draws such great, fantastic media coverage as well to the importance of learn to swim. So let's go ahead and
exactly.
bring Beth Root in. All right, there's Beth. Hi, Beth.
Hey guys.
Hi, Beth.
Good. Hi.
How you doing?
How are you guys doing? I am good. I'm really good. Doing really good.
Good.
Um,
Hanging
so,
in there with the event coming up?
Hanging in there, trying to get everybody supported and get people excited and make sure everybody's feeling enthusiastic. And I think it's going pretty well.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
So, Beth, I want to ask you first if you could just give our audience just a little bit of background on World's Largest Swim Lesson. I know a lot of people are very familiar. It's a huge event in water safety every year, but can you give us a little bit of the history and maybe how World's Largest Swimming Lesson got started and some of the things you're most proud of over the years?
Absolutely. I would be happy to do that. So the first year of the World's Largest Swimming Lesson was 2010. It was originally conceived to support National Water Safety Month. We started working with the World's Largest Swimming Lesson with the World Water Park Association as its founder, and brought in the American Red Cross and the National Recreation and Parks Association to participate. And the idea was, what could we do to extend the idea of National Water Safety Month? What could we do as summer was getting started that would really resonate and drive media? So the very first year we initiated the program, our goal was to set a Guinness World Record for the world's largest swimming lesson. And that in and of
Mm-hmm.
itself was going to be a nice media hook for us to pull people in. So very first year we had about 3,400 or so swimmers and maybe 6 countries. And it's just exploded from there. And we've been incredibly blessed to have such good participation year after year.
That's awesome. Well, and I know, Laura, since you and I have been involved in water safety. I mean, this is an event, like I said, I look forward to every single year. And Beth, I know you and I have talked about this before. Is the media impressions that you track? Can you tell us how many media impressions you're up to now?
So I think at this point we hardly even know. But we know we're well beyond 2 billion media impressions.
Hmm.
So our 10-year goal initially was to be able to hit about 1 billion. And obviously the media landscape has changed. There was initially when we were getting a lot of those media impressions from local television stations, those numbers have shifted. We find a lot more online, but we feel very fortunate. We've been in Oprah magazine, we've been in USA Today, we've been, CNN, so many different places, um, with people talking about and carrying this message of how important it is to get involved in learning to swim.
Um, Beth, I remember about a year ago, well, over a year ago now, when COVID first hit. And we did this. I know you and I were talking about back in probably January of 2020. 2020 being the 10-year anniversary of World's Largest Swim Lesson and just all the exciting things leading up to that 10-year event. And then I think it just hit all of us like a hand grenade.
Mm-hmm.
How we were going to shift, how we were going to pivot. And Laura and I often talked about this throughout the water safety conference this year, was the fact that our community in water safety didn't just take a step back and say, well, COVID put a stop to everything, so we'll just have to pick up when this whole thing is over. I like to say, and Laura, you and I have said this multiple times, that we innovated through COVID, not just NDPA,
Hmm.
but every organization in water safety
Yeah.
found a way to innovate. And Beth, I thought last year with how you ran World's Largest Swim Lesson through all the curveballs that COVID threw us was just magnificent. Could you talk a little bit about what you did last year for COVID and even this upcoming summer? There's probably, hopefully, we're kind of exiting the pandemic, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's still a lot of challenges that are facing a lot of our facilities. Could you talk a little bit about how you've changed World's Largest Swimming Lesson over the past year and just how this year is looking like as far as participation opportunities go?
Well, I would say we learned a lot last year, I think. We did much more online, like everybody did. We pivoted and shifted to virtual opportunities. We spent a lot of time last year talking about different layers of protection, talking about learn to swim in different environments. We did some online virtual events where we provided instruction from swimming instructors for parents to be able to do at home, whether you had a hot
Mm.
tub, whether you had a backyard pool. We talked about some of the challenges with everybody trying to recreate in their own backyard. So we talked about above ground pools, inflatable pools, kiddie pools, the dangers that are involved with that. Um, we also talked a lot about just every kind of water safety situation and where people were finding themselves because they were not in traditional lifeguarded pools and they were not taking traditional swimming lessons. So
Hmm.
this year we've kind of continued to provide resources, continue to try to direct people to where they can find resources, whether that's through the NDPA Resource Center, whether that's through the American Red Cross. Stop Drowning Now. There's so many organizations now that have different tools that can be used. So we're trying to make sure everybody's aware of those types of resources. And then we're also trying to simplify things for folks that want to participate this year. Um, Registration is open. We encourage everybody to get online and register. Our goal has been to try to have folks do 21 people in 21 if you're able to do that, because we feel that the opportunity, even if you can't make it a big event this year, it's such an important message to get out there because so many kids were not able to participate in Learn to Swim programs last year. I mean, in the
Hmm.
same way that people are feeling an academic pressure and concern, it's like everything, right? People just missed the opportunity to participate in swimming lessons and water safety training last year. And for kids at those crucial learn to swim ages, it's really important for kids whose bodies are changing and they do not feel the same way in the water, and maybe those water competency skills that should have gotten to the next level, or that they're not as comfortable with because their body is different. There's so many reasons why we really want people to get back involved in swimming lesson programs this year. So we're, like I said, trying to, whether or not you make it a huge event, or whether it's just 5 people at your pool, or whether you are using your regular swimming lesson program and counting that towards this World's Largest Swimming Lesson event, we'd encourage you to do that, because you can take the media tools, the press releases, and all that information to try to build awareness in your community about the fact that you're open, that you are teaching swimming lessons, and the importance of really getting caught back up because we missed out last year. We also have 2 different curriculums for people that need to continue to maintain social distancing in their communities. You can do a socially distanced curriculum. People are able this year to submit materials online and digitally. They don't have to send packages of materials in. So there's just, I think, more flexibility, I think more opportunity to utilize this program regardless of who you are and what kind of swim lesson or learn to swim or aquatic environment or facility you have.
Well, and I think that's one of the most important things that we've talked about through COVID, right, is what are the challenges that COVID has presented to us in the water safety world? And, you know, I know, Laura, you and I will probably have many discussions this summer that revolve around this exact topic. But one of my fears is, you know, I think a lot of families got used to, okay, it's summertime, sign my kids up for swim lessons, you know, we're going to the community pool or our community water park or whatever that center of aquatics is in your local community. And that is, we potentially lost a generation of swimmers last year, bringing them into this learn to swim. And, you know, what worries me is not just from, you know, swimming as a sport, but, you know, our purposes here in water safety, swimming is such a key layer of protection. You know, if people know how to swim, they're less likely to drown. The research has, you know, shown us that. And, you know, kind of where my head goes with this conversation is the fact that the importance of bringing that attention back to learn to swim this summer is going to be absolutely critical. And we know we're going to face a number of changes right across the aquatics community, from lifeguard shortages to pools not being able to open to budgetary challenges. But that doesn't change that the idea that our patrons, our community members that we're serving in water safety still need that core competency in the pool of learning to swim. And I think that just puts such an extra emphasis on this event this year.
You know, Adam, I think just to follow up on that and go to you, Beth, too, is I don't think we've lost a generation of swimmers, but I think there's been, just like with school, a giant sort of delay, okay, and or just a big pause. But what I've seen on the flip side of that, which I think that the water safety community and the learn to swim community is going to follow suit, is, again, there's been some innovation of how to sort of get these kids back up to speed, right, in their academic cases, or you know, whereas, you know, you look at some of these other say, you know, the SATs, say these, you know, they have finally had to pivot, right, because this was not going to be an option. And there's been sort of some calls to action in other areas where maybe some of the people that are involved in the space just haven't necessarily either had the time, money, effort, whatever it is, to make those really necessary pivots. We've been catapulted forward into the future here of, for lack of a better phrase, sink or swim, right? You know, people have had to figure this out. And traditionally aquatics, this is why I always felt like that the World's Largest Swimming Lesson was such a great event. Traditionally aquatics, I mean, think about it. You have a lot of people that are literally in the water, okay? So traditionally this space was not very tech savvy or very, you know, very much online, you know. So this really, I mean, the innovation and what people were able to do and talk about and feel more comfortable talking about and doing these things was, I think, a huge step forward for learn to swim and water safety. And the other piece is I think we've also been, there's historically been such a gap between pool and spa and open water. No more, okay? Because we have people that are recreating, like you said, doing far more because people were desperate. They wanted to get out. So that offers us a whole another set of safety precautions we talk about. But what I think has been really good has been the melding of these two spaces to
Yeah.
realize that water is water, and you need to know how to swim in and around any type of body of water. So where World's Largest Swimming Lesson, Beth, I think comes into play, and we can talk a little bit about that. I'd like to hear from you about how people can get involved in whatever water they're using, for this. With the online capabilities that you've always had and the resources that you've always had, there wasn't much of a pivot there. You've enhanced it, I'm sure, in many ways, but you already had such a robust online set of tools, which I think is amazing, and that everybody can use to really communicate this message to their community, but to maybe be able to tell them, hey, you can do this in the local lake, the local, whatever you're doing, you can do this in your bathtub. You can do this, you don't have to go necessarily if your community pool is closed. You can still be teaching and being a part of water safety with your children, with your community members. And the last piece also, share on social media. Just once is not going to be enough. You're going to need to share what you're doing, so people will get it when they see it and see the information. So my long drowned out, as per usual, question would be, one, to talk about the different types of water they can do this in, and then also what you guys think is the best way that sort of the individual or other people joining, how they can promote it to their community best, and what they can do there, so we can really get this message out that any water is water that they can be in doing this.
So I would say, first, I agree 100% on this melding and bringing together of water in general. And we've been very fortunate with World's Largest Swimming Lesson that from the very beginning. We've worked with swim schools, water parks, aquatic centers, just across the board, any type of kind of traditional and commercial type of aquatic facility. But in addition to that, particularly internationally, we have had a lot of people doing events in open water, and we see it much more internationally because that's where the water is for them. If we're in India, or if we're in Africa and other places like that, they're using open water places, or they're constructing places to do this event. So absolutely, any water will work as long as it's appropriately guarded and safe in general, as water goes. You certainly can do the events in an open water environment. There are different things that you probably are going to talk about if you're in an open water event, as far as some of the safety rules, or the exiting and entry messaging that you're going to share. But absolutely, you can do it in any kind of environment. And as I said earlier, you can work with little kids in a hot tub. You can certainly do it in a backyard pool. The minimum number of people that need to participate to count, if you will, towards the World's Largest Swimming Lesson is 5. So you need 5 swimmers and an instructor. You do need an instructor that is trained with some sort of traditional credentialed program, which there are now many. It used to only be, the American Red Cross used to be the only place, or the YMCA, I guess those two used to be the only place that really taught people how to swim. There are now many, many different potential opportunities. One of the things I want to mention, though, about the American Red Cross, Laura, to your question about how can you do something in your community, if you decide that this is your mission and this is a passion for you and you want to get involved and do something, the American Red Cross now has programs where you can learn to teach swimming to younger kids. Now we're not talking about teaching people how to lifeguard. That's still a water safety instructor certification, which is much more rigorous. But they now have certifications for folks to be able to teach the first couple levels of Learn to Swim, and that certification is not difficult and challenging to do. You don't have to be an incredible swimmer or aquatics person from forever ago. You could be a retiree in your community. You can also use that resource if you want. If you have a facility and you don't have instructors, but you still want to participate, or you're looking to try to enhance your programming, that is a way that you could work with volunteers in your community, like retirees or school teachers or camp counselors or It's just a much faster, more accessible, easier track to get the training that you need to be able to provide those basic skills to folks in your community.
That's incredible.
That's pretty exciting, and it is also pretty helpful in a year when we know folks are scrambling for staffing. Yeah, and as Laura, you've said so kindly a couple times, it's really a turnkey event. So you don't have to have done special events before. You don't have to have a media relations person on your team. You do not have to, you don't really have to know much of anything if you register for the event and you follow the instructions. Every single thing is in the guide for you. How many people you need, the things that you need to consider and think about on a checklist, the day, what you need to do the week before, the day before, 6 weeks before, the letter that you need to send to people that you want to participate in your community as witnesses or to get to come MC, or the social media posts. Laura, as you said, share. We're so overwhelmed because there is such a multiple fire hoses of content coming at us every day. So it is important to really get it out there and continue that flow of information. And there's tools there to do it. There's graphics tools and copy and content tools and so on. So that's
and
all
people
available.
appreciate that. People appreciate that kind of information coming their way, and we are inundated. So it's for people who are afraid, oh, I don't want to overwhelm people, or I don't want to share too much. You know what? If you share in the morning and noon, at night, the purpose for which you're sharing is a noble and good one. And there's a lot of other stuff that's coming people's way right now. I think that they will very much appreciate getting this type of information coming in from someone who's being active and spreading something that's so important to us and to everyone else. So, if anyone is feeling that kind of apprehension, I think that this is good information to spread, and with a good cause. Like you've said, you've provided the tools also for them to do it. They don't have to create the graphics. They don't have to do any of those things. I love that it gives, coming from a PR background, my foundation is in a PR background, providing the information necessary to contact your local TV stations. It's even more, I hate to say this because I have to do PR and marketing, but it's even more credible coming from the source. Like if you're a mom and you're contacting them and you want to tell them what you're doing, they want to hear that. So, these things are all there for people to use. And I think also for the people in our space, like you mentioned too, Adam, there's a shortage. It is important for the people in your area, if you are a swim instructor or you do have a swim school or anything like that they know that you're open and you're operating. This is a great way to sort of get on the coattails of your huge event that will get coverage and will start to trend and will do those things online to tell everybody in your community we're open for business, which is an important area too. So for those people listening that are instructors, are swim school owners, this is a great opportunity for you to almost advertise for free that you are open and ready to train everyone again and ready to go. And like you said, or if you have social distancing requirements, they can also communicate that as well. So that's very important that there's two different curriculums that we have there. So I think it's great.
Well,
we've had people, just two other points I wanted to make. One, I think one of the nice things about the program is we've had people use it to their individual advantage in many, many different ways. We've had people who have great partnerships with like the fire department or the police department or their local Safe Kids program through the Children's Hospital. They partner with those different organizations and utilize this event as just one more piece of their puzzle to do their local community water safety event or kids health and safety event or first day of summer carnival or their anniversary celebration. So it can definitely be utilized and personalized, I guess, for whatever it is that you want to accomplish. And then second, I wanted to jump back to this idea of advertising. For the very first time this year, we have two new elements that are going to be available, or that we have available. One of them is radio PSAs. We have a couple different versions of radio PSAs, including one in Spanish. And male, female voices, different radio formats. They can be used to share with your local radio station, who, if you are not in this universe and don't know, are required to air public service announcements as part of their contract. So you can get in the queue to do that. You can also use that. Yes,
I did.
It's true. And you can also use them through your on-site PA system if you're encouraging people that you want to talk to those people while they're at your facility, to encourage them to come back or to learn more about it. So 2 different uses for those recorded pieces. And then we have some local market TV spots also that folks, again, and television stations are also required to share public service announcements and in terms of public health and opportunities. So just another couple tools that all can be tagged with your local information, and they're completely produced and ready for you when you sign up and register to participate. So we're excited about
It's so good to know that you, Beth, you'll be helping the NDPA create these PSAs for our local things around the conference. It's just excellent to know. Thank you so much for volunteering those skills that you have now acquired. We appreciate it so much.
You know,
there you go.
One thing that I want to go real quickly back to is this idea that, this is a truly local event in your local community. Because, Laura, I go back to when you and I attended the World Conference on Drowning Prevention. I think that was back in 2017. And the theme of that conference was kind of think globally, prevent locally. I'm sure I messed that up in some way. But I started coming back. I did a lot of thinking after that, and for the past few years, I've been saying, what we do at NDPA and what we do with our national organizations, we're not really the ones out there preventing drownings in the local community. It's these types of efforts. Drownings are prevented locally in your communities, and World's Largest Swim Lesson is a great way to not just bring the attention to learn to swim, but bring the attention to the whole water safety conversation that needs to happen. And just like what we've tried to do with, some of the things with the NDPA Resource Center and, with the whole idea of this being a turnkey event where you can really, with no really marketing experience, advertising experience, kind of like me just saying, I just learned that radio stations have to air PSAs. This is what actually can open the door in a community. So if you're listening and you're involved in any shape, way or form with aquatics, and you're thinking, I just don't know if I can do this or what's the benefit to my local community, it starts that conversation. It draws attention to the drowning problem we have, to water safety education. And I think that makes such a huge, huge impact where, again, if we're just posting stuff on social media or doing podcasts like this, yes, it moves the needle, but not so much as that local event happening in your community.
I think that is absolutely right. And to go back to that idea of personalization, Collins, we're all big Alyssa Magrin fans, and all the work that Collins Hope has done. But I think one of the things that she does so incredibly well, and whether it's with World Swim Lesson or other events, but she knows what's happening in the state of Texas, in her community, in Austin. She has that data. So then she can marry the data that she's got, the information that she has with this event that's generating press. And we've done that. We personalize them to a certain extent anyway on a national basis based on what's happening. What's currently happening, and Texas has given us, sadly, some examples to help tell that story. But if you can make it, the more personal you make it, as Laura said, if it's a mom in a local community, then it's all the more legit. But when it's relevant in your local community is when it's important, and when that message will get heard, and when we will move the needle. And frankly, the event itself would not be what it is at all if we didn't have folks that really stepped up and created those impressions in their local market. That's why we're so successful. We provide tons of tools, but the reason that we're successful is because people utilize those tools in their local market.
Well, I think
exactly.
Yeah, I think too, I know we've said this before, but there are a lot of facilities that are facing staffing shortages this year. And I think this is quite linear, where if we don't have children learning to swim, that's going to affect our already short supply of lifeguards. And, if you're a facility that is a community-based facility, and maybe you're not opening this summer due to budget constraints or lifeguarding shortages or things like that, bringing attention and partnering even with another facility, on the other side
Mhm.
of town to host a world's largest swimming lesson helps draw attention to why aquatics is so, so important to our local communities. And really what I love is this kind of merging of this learn to swim message with the water safety message, with the drowning
Mhm.
prevention messaging. And I think that
Yeah.
unification is so, so important with this event and draws that attention to it. And what the other one thing, Beth, that I have to say is, you guys picked the first day of summer, right around that time period to do World's Largest Swimming Lesson
Sometimes
every
it's
year.
perfect and it hits right on. Sometimes
Yeah.
not so much. But yeah, that general idea.
Yeah, but I think that's so important too because yes, we have Water Safety Month and International Water Safety Day, but then we go into June and now it's the heat of the summer and facilities are opening and school, kids are out of school, and I think this is another great way, just as another reminder, right at the outset of summer, keep water
Mhm.
safety front of mind.
Well, and it's nice too because the tummy falls so close to the July 4th holiday weekend. So we are, I mean, not right on top of, but it's a good opportunity, again, in terms of talking with the media, to explain that the July 4th holiday weekend is traditionally one of the most dangerous in terms of drownings, at least within the United States. So that's another reason we're post Memorial Day and people are in, as you said, the heat of summer, but kids are out of school, and so the timing works pretty well to be able to really try to shout this message from the hilltops again one more time to push on through
Yeah,
the rest of June
it's
and
so
July.
important. It's so important because we do have a lot of messaging that comes out in May, and to start to spread that message out through June, through July. Once August hits, we're starting to see a lot of back to school stuff.
Right,
That's really,
right.
but as we all know, I mean, it's the dead of summer in August, and people
Mm-hmm.
are absolutely out there vacationing. The last few weeks in August is a huge time that people are away and are recreating.
Yeah.
So I think the more that we can spread this message out throughout all of summer, not
Mm-hmm.
just sort of this big bang in May, around that is definitely critically important to um, the future of our message. Also, when you get towards the end of summer, I think a little bit of fatigue sets in as well,
Yeah.
of people just being
Yeah.
super comfortable, kind of living around a pool or
Right.
hanging out at the beach, and so just if we're
I think
able
that's
to
true.
kind of, yeah, the more and more and more we can find opportunities that we can start pushing this message further into summer, the better
Yeah.
off I think we're going to be.
Well, one other thing, Laura, that just popped into my mind as we've been having this discussion is, we already know this through research. Parents are not great judges of their child's actual swimming ability. A lot of
Right.
parents really overestimate their child's abilities in the water, and
And children and kids do too. They
Yeah,
underestimate their own overestimate their own abilities, which is
yeah.
dangerous.
for sure.
Well, and I think, even if a child hasn't been in swim lessons for a while, this idea of World's Largest Swimming Lesson being right at the beginning of the summer is a great way to just remind parents of how important the skill is and to not overestimate your child's swimming ability. Get them into lessons, get them into refresher lessons, make sure they have that skill ability. Because I think just what you just said, Laura, we all gain that comfort in that, especially in that August time period every year with summer. And that's where drownings are fast and silent, 20 to 60 seconds. Oftentimes the victim's not going to yell out for help, and we get comfortable around the water, and that's not what we want to see either. So and I want to remind our listeners, we're not trying to be critical and say that we don't want you to enjoy the water. We want the opposite. We want you to enjoy the water. We want you to be around the water, but just do it safely. And
Hmm.
really, that learning to swim component is a huge critical component of that overall safety plan around the pool. Or around
One
any
of the
body of
other
water.
things, absolutely. One of the other things that we've been talking about a lot, I know I already mentioned the American Red Cross, but they've been doing so much work in terms of research, which is an area where we're always struggling a little bit in terms of data and trying to understand what's really happening. But in 2016, they did research about water competency, and Adam, to your point about how parents and kids, swimmers themselves, are overly confident in their capabilities. They talked about the difference between water competency and having taken swimming lessons, and then actually being water competent, having the skills that you need to be
Hmm.
able to save your life if you're in a body of water. and you run into trouble. And they did research again last year in the middle of COVID, talking about that pivot and not stopping and continue doing what you're doing. So they did more research. They found that but they found that swimming, more people had participated, more people knew how to swim. We've been moving the needle in that area and in terms of water competency. But one of the things we're trying to continue to push out is that understanding of what the difference between taking swimming lessons or a couple swimming lessons and being water competent. And so we're trying to use our platform this year, and we're always trying to kind of enhance and focus a little bit on different messages and nuanced messages. But I think that's one of the things we're trying to talk about this year, particularly when you've skipped a year of lessons. So yeah, you've had swimming lessons, but are you water competent? And what does that mean? Are you going to be in a situation where you're safe in the water? So one of the TV and radio spots that we've done talks about the fact that 54% of kids 4 to 17 don't have the water competency skills that they need to save their own life in water. So it's just another sort of bullet point or factor to get that message out about how important it is to participate and engage in lessons.
That is extremely important because, I mean, that is exactly what happened to Clay. I always like to tell people, I mean, my whole family is involved in water in some way. I mean, we're enthusiasts, boating, fishing. My husband does triathlons. My daughter was on the swim team. We are around water all the time. And Clay had been through 2 essentially sort of levels or semesters of swim lessons, but it happened in early June. Okay, so this was, if I'm looking back on it, okay, this was the first or so, I have to look back, but we're talking probably the first or second weekend after school ended, or around there, that time or so. And he's a bigger boy. I mean, we'll never totally know exactly, but we do know that he got out of sight of some friends. It looks as though he was found at the bottom with his towel. Okay, so I do know that he was never the kind of kid that said, I'm just going to jump in. That was not his MO, but we believe it's possible he tripped and fell in his towel and went in. But the reality is that he had been around water and people that are all highly competent in water, both open and pool and spa. And he had already been in lessons and he fell in and he sank. Okay, so this is somebody who's had exposure to everything, parents that are aware. He got one parent, we weren't watching him, one parent thought, he was heading over to her. They didn't know that neither parent had him under eye. He was just going over, walking. He wasn't even actively swimming. So that is the exact right example, this is so tough for our space, because this is not a one and done. This isn't even a one semester and done. This isn't, it's like, hi, so you got to keep doing it too. Like year after year after year. Yeah. It's so easy. It's so easy to market this one, as you all know. But that is reality. And as you said, as they grow and change in their bodies, it's going to feel differently, and their competency level can get to be, is different and more. But it's really that, especially for people that are not living in warm warm climates, where we're really out of practice. I'm in the DC area. Okay. Unless you're doing some winter swimming for some reason at a local pool, other than maybe going away over the holidays, maybe your spring break, they're not swimming until summer comes. So it's that much more important to continue that message of competency and just consistency. And again, if you have videos where you've used this information, where somebody can even work with this with their own child in the bathtub, in the hot tub, in the pool, great. Keep it going, because it is not something that you graduate from until you actually graduate from it and you have hit competency and you are aware of what those things mean and say, which is, it takes a while. It does. And like you said too, and I always say to people, adults don't know it. Many adults don't have any idea. Like, would you be able to float on your back if we capsized here on this boat without a life jacket? Most people are going to say, I don't know.
Yes. Well, and those are the words all of us hate to hear. I didn't know. I don't know. I didn't.
The worst.
Right. Those are the worst words to hear. when we're trying so hard to communicate that message. But Laura, to your point, I
Yep.
do think it's a lifelong membership, man. You get in,
Yep.
and the messages that you're giving to your kids, you need to remind them. You need to remind them when they are, 3, 5, 6, 8, when they're young boys and they are in their teens and they're doing different activities. You need to remind them that they must be wearing a life jacket. You need to remind them when they are babysitting, when they are camp counselors, when they are first-time parents, when they are parents that are still there, when they are having parties. I mean, there's just, you talk about layers of protection, but there is we're dollar billing you, because there is a message every single situation, and you gotta keep it going.
I'll tell you, you're so right. I mean, as you guys know, obviously my family's involved in water safety, and they are aware of drowning prevention. And my daughter is 16, and she just went on a trip with her boyfriend's family, a boat trip. And I just said, Mace, we got to talk. And she knew. She sat down like, here we go, but she didn't question.
My boys are like, okay, all right.
Now the thing is she sort of rolls her eyes because she actually knows it, okay, and she is safe about it. But I, as a mother, felt like, okay, I'm sending my child off to be on a boat in the middle of the ocean for I don't know how long, and it was a small boat, not like not a cruise or anything. And so it's true. Even at different ages, you have to communicate to your kids. I mean, I said, hey, I don't know if the other parents around are going to be drinking and having a good time. You need to be aware, and she is aware, and that is that. But yes, you have to keep communicating that. And I'll tell you a positive story. I had some friends here that decided to build a pool. This is only a few years ago, and one of their sons is in college now. Their other child is my daughter's age, and she had me come over and literally, like, she needed my approval. She showed me the plan. She goes, and their kids were older, and she said they can't get into that. They had the pool cover, they had like a combination from an app. It wasn't even something they could do on it. And they said, when we're gone, even out to dinner, this thing is closed up and the kids don't even have the code to open it up. They wanted me to know. They didn't have toddlers. They had high school, middle school kids. And because of Clay's accident, we've all grown up together. This has lasted that long, which was really awesome for me to know that here we are 10 something years later, and I have an acquaintance, a friend that's building a pool in their yard, and it's still heavy on their mind. They haven't said, oh, I don't have a toddler or a baby, I'm fine. No, it was still heavy on their mind, the new dangers there, and they have enjoyed their pool. And when they had pool parties, they got a lifeguard. It was just, they were so responsible. They didn't not build a pool in their backyard. They didn't not enjoy it by having a party. They just put a few precautions in place or behavior expectations in place. And there you have it. You can safely have that type of interaction. So you're right. It's a lifetime membership in multiple ways. And the best part about swimming is that it is an activity that is accessible to all of us for as old as we get. I will probably all be in water aerobics together one day, okay? But
Beth, before we wrap up, I know we're running out of time today. I have a quick question for you, and that's how can someone learn more about World's Largest Swim Lesson? How can they become involved? How do they reach out to you? And then also, I know we're coming up on the date for this year, so I know this is a little bit premature, but if someone can't participate this year, when will they be able to learn information about next year's World's Largest Swim Lesson?
Well, we don't have our date picked for next year's lesson yet. We are absolutely focused right now on trying to get as many people back on deck. We've been hashtag back on deck a lot, trying to encourage folks to get involved. So this year's lesson is Thursday, June 17th. So a little bit before that first day of summer. And you need to go to either worldsunderswimminglesson.com or WLSL.com. WLSL.com. And you'll be able to navigate your way to everything you need there. There are resources, water safety tips, and so on. There's history of the event. And most importantly, there's a big orange button on the right upper part of the screen where you can click register. And then that will get you going.
Awesome. Well, Beth, thank you so much for taking time to
Fantastic.
join us and our first podcast with a guest.
I'm so excited to have
know,
been the very first inaugural guest.
We were so excited. And, when Laura and I started talking about who our first guest was going to be, and we looked at the calendar and we're like, oh my gosh, it has to be Beth. World's Largest Swim Lessons right around the corner.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you'll be joining us again to talk about the success of World's Largest Swim Lesson. And just thank you to your whole team. I know this is a massive effort to put on each year, but 2 billion media impressions is so huge. And like I said, this starts the messaging off for the whole summer and just keeping that importance on the idea of learning to swim. So thank you so much, and really looking forward to the event this year. I can't wait to be back on deck.
Well, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate the opportunity. We appreciate everything that NDPA does and has been doing, the work over the last couple of years, the Resource Center. I just continue to be so impressed. And I think everybody's making a difference. I'm a huge fan and cheerleader and appreciate the reciprocal support. World's Largest Swimming Lesson on June 17th, WLSL.com. No, .org. What did I say? .org. Anyway,
.org. WLSL.org.
.org. I think you can get there either way. I believe we
Org.
Well, what I usually say to everyone anymore is just go to Google, type in World's Largest Swimming Lesson, type in NDPA.
Well, there you go. That
the
will
Google
work.
Machine will point you to the right place, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ask the Google. The Google will tell you.
We all worked hard for those rankings, so please use them as you see fit. They'll come up for you.
Absolutely. Beth, thank you so much, and good luck with this year's World's Largest Swimming Lesson.
Thanks so much. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. See you, Beth.
Awesome. You too, Beth. Thank you.
Laura, so exciting. Cannot wait for this year's World's Largest Swimming Lesson.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I really actually think it's going to be very highly attended. Not all programs are back in action. Kids are going to be, and kids have frankly been out of school. They'll be out of school officially. So I really feel like this is actually a time, where we're still in some transition here with sports and things where maybe in the past, maybe camp or different things, had obstructed people from being able to get involved. I feel like this is an opportunity for them to really get involved. What I also think is a good thing is, frankly, over the years, both the NDPA and World's Largest Swimming Lesson, we've matured in terms of all of our marketing, of our reach, of our following. And so with every year that NDPA amplifies this voice of World's Largest Swimming Lesson, we're able to do exactly that. Really amp up that message, get it out there, have our people know about it and use it. It's unfortunate because obviously we do lose people every year, but our reach, I think, and our ability to get to people, I have a good feeling this is going to actually be a very successful year for them. Obviously less traditional than it was in years past, but isn't everything, right? And the most important thing that we're doing right now is getting the message into people's heads. And so they understand and they're empowered. And that's the most important thing. I think we've talked about this, Adam, over so many times of the year. This is a positive way to market a scary subject, right? This is a positive way to discuss what we do, and it's a way to empower people to make sure that they are able to get out there and make a difference, not only for their own families but for the other people in the community.
Well, Laura, you and I often talk about this idea, and we've had to learn this in our marketing with NDPA, is if you market things in a negative way, and that's so easy to do when we're talking about such a heavy subject with water safety, and especially when you add in drowning prevention into this mix, World's Largest Swimming Lesson is such a great way to get that positive message out there, and it's doing the same thing that, you could do taking a negative spin. But, what we've learned is if you're a parent or you're a caregiver, or even an older teenager, and you see a negative message, you oftentimes tune it out because we don't like negativity in our lives. And when you can see something positive, and if you're watching the video version of the podcast, right after the podcast, you're going to see the promo video for World's Largest Swim Lesson. And what I
Hmm.
love about it, it's such an amp up, getting ready, get excited. I love showing that video because I get excited to get back into swim
Yeah,
lessons.
it's
And
and that's yeah, it's so important. One of the things for those who are listening, and something that I've actually more recently started to talk about myself and my marketing experience is that I have experience now really marketing what I'm trying to think of a different term, but sensitive topics, right? Some of the things that we've learned over time is that certain photographs can trigger things. I mean, I've had this experience to a certain, with a non-fatal incident where I can understand that and I see that. And it's so important. I cannot stress enough how important it is to spread messages like World's Largest Swimming Lesson. We also, as you know, at NDPA, we have so many different partners and people that have children's books that do all different kinds of positive things. Yes, it is also our job to report some of the sobering statistics. It is also our job to get some of this correct information and terminology out to the world. Yes, but that is not primarily the information we're trying to put out, especially to consumers, to parents. We're trying to give them, not scare the living what out of them. We're trying to give them tools. We're trying to tell people how to do this. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions about the water safety space is that people on the outside of it might think that people involved in water safety think you should just, close up your pools and never go. No, it's the complete opposite. We now partner with the industry. We want people to be, I mean, water is a beautiful thing, a powerful thing, a healing thing, something that brings joy and healing and love and togetherness and, wonderful things. Life, for example,
health
water
and
brings life.
wellness,
We
fitness.
just, health and wellness, everything. We want people just to understand because, just like Beth said, we hear it all the time, and if there's one phrase we want to go to our personal graves not hearing anymore is I didn't know,
Yep.
because we hear it all the time, and most likely it is in relation to the death of someone's child
Yeah.
and they just didn't know, and it was probably very easy to prevent. And that is what we hear. So the more that we can do this on a fun way, it just plants the seed and gets people thinking differently. They show up for that summer vacation at that VRBO or the Airbnb that has a pool. They're just thinking a little differently about it. And they can have the same great time they were going to have before, just a little safer. So I really do feel, as you can tell, passionate about these types of events and messaging, because they are, I think, the way to very much communicate this across the masses, online and, in the future.
Well, I go back to, it's drownings are prevented locally. You're more likely to listen to someone in your local community. You're more likely to connect. The messaging is there. It's, I put the stress on, how important it is for aquatic folks, facility managers, learn to
Yep.
swim program managers to really look at this as a way to connect better with their communities and really directly make their community safer. I think that's so important. Well, Laura, I know we're getting out of time, so I want to just remind everyone, check out next week to rejoin us for our next NDPA Water Safety podcast. As the summer gets going, we're going to be hosting these every week during the summer, so really excited. And remember, June 17th, World's Largest Swim Lesson, I always mess this up. World's Largest Swimming Lesson, WLSL.org. Make
Dot
sure you go
org.
there, visit, get involved, follow it on social media, and we'll be doing the same thing when it comes to the day of World's Largest Swimming Lesson. Get out there, get involved, spread the message of water safety, and rejoin us next week for our next podcast.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. Stay safe. Enjoy the water. And Laura and I will be back with you next week.
We will.